نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين إن الحمد لله. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us today, has chosen us today to be in the greatest places on earth, the masajid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the best day of the entire week, on the day of Yawm al-Jum'ah, doing the best possible deed we can do with our lives. And that is remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These moments are one of the greatest gifts you will have in your life. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, from the depths of your heart, you need to say Alhamdulillah. Because on the day of judgment, when you come with your book of deeds, when you have your entire life in those pages, these special moments will be highlighted, will shine, will be the moments that you hold on to. And they're only from the mercy and blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The khatib every week recites very powerful verses, very powerful phrases, one of which is مَن يَهْدِهِ اللَّهُ فَلَا مُضِلَّ لَهُ وَمَن يُضْلِلْهُ فَلَا هَادِيَ لَهُ. That just because you're in the masjid today, just because you're remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala today, does not guarantee you will end your life in the masjid. You will end your life remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So never for a second fall into the trick of shaitan. That you know what, I'm okay. I'm probably going to go to Jannah. I'm not that bad of a person. Because even the Sahaba, one of the best people to step foot on this earth after the prophets, even they were terrified when the list of the munafiqun came down. Is my name on that list? They were terrified. If that was the case for them, what should be the case for us? And the flip side to that is that never ever look down on somebody else. If somebody else isn't praying, if somebody else isn't in the masjid, somebody doesn't look like they're religious, all it takes is a moment, an instant for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide and change that person's heart. And that same person you're looking down upon, or that same person you might be worried about, it could be a sibling, it could be a son, a daughter, a friend, a co-worker, somebody you know could end their life a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, closer to Allah than you are. And so on a weekly basis we remind ourselves of that. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, his entire life is a lesson and blessing and guidance for us. All of his quotes and lessons and hadith, all of them are precious, all of them are beneficial. Some of them, however, are so important that we have to have a habit of reminding and reviewing those hadith, those general, all-encompassing, comprehensive hadith that are practical. Some hadith we should be printed and on our walls, and we should be looking at it every day. One of those hadith is the topic of today's khutbah, which relates back to one of the first addresses and talks of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he entered Medina. We all know the beautiful famous hadith. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was traveling and when he did the act of hijrah, he entered the city of Medina, and the crowd was gathered outside the city. Remember, at that time, about 20% of the city was Muslim. Most of them were not Muslim. They were gathered around, anticipating, expecting, looking forward to the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, seeing what's going on. Who is this person? And in that moment, Rasulullah ﷺ gave some advice, 4 pieces of advice. And I want you to think for a second, this is the first open address to this community. Out of all the topics he could have chosen, out of all the things to focus on, he focused on these 4 things. And these 4 things encompass every major aspect of our lives. This advice encompasses our relationship with Allah. This advice, this hadith encompasses our relationship with our family and our relatives. This advice encompasses our larger community. And this advice encompasses everyone outside of that. It's a very comprehensive and important hadith that we have to focus on and to remember. And what is that hadith? Rasulullah ﷺ says, Ya ayyuhan nas. He didn't say, O Muslims. He said, O mankind, because this message is for everyone, not just for people in the masjid today, not just for somebody who says, La ilaha illallah. This is for a message for mankind. He ﷺ said, Ya ayyuhan nas, afshu salam, spread the salam. Number 1. Wa at'im at-ta'am. Number 2, feed the hungry. Wasil al-arham, be good to your family. Wasallu bil-layli wan-nasu niyam, and pray at night when others are asleep. If you do these 4 things, what does Rasulullah tell you at the end? تَدْخُلُونَ الْجَنَّةِ بِسَلَامِ. You will enter Jannah with peace. It starts with salam, and it ends with salam, with peace entering Jannah. In a previous khutbah, we focused on the first 2. Today, we're going to focus on number 3. I'll briefly go over the first 2 things. Number 1, Rasulullah says, to spread the salam. Scholars tell us that these words of Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, it's deeper than just the words. It's your ikhlaq, it's your character. Why? Because every interaction, you begin it with salam and you end with salam. It's who you are as a person. The word of salam is very significant, much more than hi or hello. You cannot translate the word salam. It means 3 deeper things. It is the first thing that was taught to Adam alayhi salam. He was told, our father Adam alayhi salam, to go and to say these words to the angels and to memorize the response, because this would be the response, the greetings of your ummah, of the people to come after. And so he said, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and the angels responded, Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. These means 3 things. Number 1, it is a dua. When you say it from the heart, you're saying, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon you. Number 2, it is a oath, it's a promise, a commitment, that no harm will come from me, whether from my actions or my words. And number 3, it's a reminder that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is as-salam, the source of peace. If you feel troubled, anxious, upset, overwhelmed, whatever it is you're feeling from this dunya, the answer to that is from as-salam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after every single salah, made this beautiful dua, Allahumma anta as-salam wa minka as-salam, tabarak ya dhal jalali wal ikram. Beautiful dua, acknowledging Allah as the source of peace and asking Allah for that peace in his life. So number 1, it's about spreading the salam. And number 2, after spreading the salam, the deen that we have is not just about living a life in a cave, just praying the salah and going home. Our deen requires that we interact with everyone around us, with a larger community. The second advice, to feed the hungry, to go out and to feed those in need. Did you know that the first commandments after La ilaha illallah, if you go back, the first commandments after Iqra, when the Jibreel alayhi salam came down, Salah became obligatory 13 years after Iqra, after the first verse was revealed. Zakah and Siyam became obligatory 15 years after that incident. Hajj became obligatory 20 years after that incident. So for more than a decade, what were the early Muslims doing? What was their Islam? So the first commandment was the amr of worshipping Allah alone. And then came the ayah, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا, that the believers are those that they give their food. They give their food, even though they have love for that food, they need that food, they desire that food, they share their food with the beggars, with the orphans, with the prisoners of war. And they say to them, we are giving this food for you. Do not thank us. We don't need your thanks. We're only doing this for the pleasure of Allah. A person's Islam was enacted by and implemented by their service to others. Rasulullah ﷺ did not wait for people to come to him and say, I need help. He had the emotional intelligence to know people, to read people, and to proactively find those people, to find the orphans, to find the widows. Amongst his friends and family, he would be able to see from their face, from their talking, something's not right. And he would go to them and ask, how can I help you? He wouldn't even ask, he would just give it. To have this sense of service, to have this sense of focus of other people. If you look at the first incidents, back to Iqra, when Jibreel salam came and that overwhelming event happened to him, he was squeezed. This overwhelming event happened. And he ran to Khadija radiallahu anha. And we know the story, he would come and he was overwhelmed, zambiluni, dasiruni, he was shaken. The words that Khadija radiallahu anha said, these are words that we should memorize. These are words we should print and have and know. What did she say? That it's a hadith in Bukhari, and I'll paraphrase it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never humiliate you. He will never cause you to go astray. Why? Number one, you are good to your family. Number two, you feed the hungry. Number three, you take care of the orphans. Number four, you are generous with those who need generosity. Number five, anytime some good needs to be done in society, you are at the forefront of doing it. You are at the forefront of doing it. In another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that the most beloved people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are who? The most beloved to Allah. أنفعهم للناس, the one who are most beneficial to others. The ones that are most beneficial to others. فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. Today's khutbah is about the beautiful first advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the people of Medina. The four actions, the four advice, starting with, it's a hadith of salam. Number one is to spread the salam, to be of someone of upright, great character, starting with those closest to you. That includes your family, that includes your work, that includes the masjid, that includes random people on the street. The second action is to feed the hungry. And it's not limited to food, to help those in need. Someone needs shelter, you give them shelter. Someone needs financial help, you give them financial help. It's to be involved and to serve others. The third advice of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wasil al-arham, be good to your family. Every week the khatib recites, remember some verses. One of those verses, Ya ayyuha nasu ittaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida wa khalaqa minha zawjaha wa batha minhuma rijalan kathiran wa nisaa. The translation of, O mankind, be dutiful to your Lord who created you from a single person, and from him he created his wife, and from them both he created many men, women, and fear Allah from whom you demand mutual rights, and do not cut the relations of the womb. Do not cut the ties of kinship. Surely Allah is ever overwatchful of you. Who you really are, who your real character is who you are at home, when no one is watching, when the doors are closed. It's not who you are at work. It's not who you are at the masjid. It's very easy to be nice and smiling and be a great person. The real test is, how do you treat your family? If you took your spouse privately or on the day of judgment, will your spouse say, my spouse was the best spouse on this earth? Will your kids or your brothers or sisters or relatives say, there's no one better than this person? This person always looked out for me. This person was patient with me. This person served me. This person was a role model for me. Or would this person complain? Would this person have a list of things? We live in a society where it's about me, me, me. My rights. What should the other person do for me? On the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you, did your wife or husband do this? Did your kids do this? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you, did you serve your duties to your spouse? Did you serve your duties to your kids? Did you serve the duties that I assigned to you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assigned your close people. You didn't choose your family. Allah chose your family for you. You didn't choose where you grew up. You think you chose it, but Allah divinely put you in a county, a community, a city, connected you to a masjid, connected you to your family, to your in-laws, to your work, your boss, your employees. What did you do with those relationships? And we all know the beautiful hadith Rasulullah says, the best person amongst you is the one who is best to his family. We all have heard it, but it's very, very powerful and very, it's a lifelong journey. You know, if you ever take a group photo, if you're with family, and you see a photo with yourself, who do you zoom into first? When you see the photo, who do you zoom into first? Most people zoom into yourselves. Like I said, we live in a society where it's centered around yourself. Do what you want. Live how you want to live your life. The Rasulullah says, and I'll focus on the parents for a bit, be dutiful to your parents. As a result, your children will be dutiful to you. You know, when your kids, the baby needs help, going to the bathroom, changing their clothes, the child talks on and on and on, and what do the parents do? Lovingly, they listen. And what happens when the roles are reversed, where the parent, the husband, the father or the mother is old? They need help going to the bathroom. They need help changing their clothes. And sometimes they say things that we don't like. How do we respond? Do we respond with love like they did to us as a child? Or do we respond out of frustration, out of this sense of burden? What's scary is for the parents, that's one respect, but for the kids, sometimes people complain, my kids never listen to me. That might be the case. But your kids may not listen to you, but they always will follow you. The kids may not listen to what you're saying, but they will always follow what you're doing. So if you live in a household, you have a habit of arguing, they will grow up arguing. If you make promises and you don't keep them, they will do the same. If you have a certain way of interacting with your husband or wife, that is when they get married, how they're going to interact with their husband or wife. It is something that's very, very scary and something we need to remember. We need to remind ourselves. In another hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ says, your parents are the largest door to enter Jannah. One of the easiest ways to enter Jannah is to serve your parents. In another hadith, Rasulullah ﷺ says, the pleasure of Allah is found in the pleasure of your parents, and the displeasure of Allah is found in the displeasure of your parents. One time a Sahabi came to Rasulullah ﷺ and he said, I have come to you all the way from Yemen to give bay'ah to you. He's thinking to himself, I've did this great action, and I've left my parents crying. And what was the response of Rasulullah ﷺ? He says that if you want the pleasure of Allah, go back to your parents. And just like you made them cry, go and make them laugh. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, who once his father passed away, the son of Abdullah ibn Zubayr, and he was crying, and people asked him why he's crying, and he says, I'm not crying only because my father passed away, I'm crying because one of the easiest doors for me entering Jannah has been closed. One of the easiest doors of entering Jannah has been closed. And now if your parents have passed away, they're no longer with us. A man came to Rasulullah ﷺ and asked, my mother has died, what can I do? He ﷺ said, he gave a list of things. You make dua for her. You seek istighfar. You give sadaqah on her behalf. You do udhiyah, you do qurbani. You go for hajj and umrah on her behalf. You visit the relatives and friends of them. You visit the relatives and the friends of them. Another instance, a man came to Rasulullah ﷺ and he said, I've committed an enormous sin. Will I be forgiven? I've committed an enormous sin. I don't know what to do. Will I be forgiven? What did Rasulullah ﷺ say? Do you have a mother? And he said, no. Then he said, do you have an aunt? He said, yes. Then go and show her birr. Go and show her kindness. The parents are so important that even the friends and siblings and brothers and sisters of the friends are important. Your wife or your husband is so important, even their family is important. It is this connection. One time, Abdullah ibn Umar was traveling to Makkah, and he encountered a Bedouin man. And he asked this Bedouin man, is this such and such your name? He said, yes. He got off from his donkey, took off his turban, and he gave it to this man. He said, take this turban and take my donkey. At that time, Abdullah bin Dinar was with him, and he was seeing this scene. And he said, may Allah forgive you. These are Bedouins. They're simple people. You just got to give them a little bit. They'll be happy. You know, if you have a beggar outside in a modern day, you give them $1, $5, $10, they'll be happy. You don't have to give $100. That's what he's kind of saying. And what did Abdullah bin Amr say? That this man's father was close to my father. Not he was close to my father. This man's father was close to my father. And I heard Rasulullah ﷺ saying that one of the greatest acts of kindness is for a man to maintain kindness and connection to the loved ones of his father after his death. Rasulullah ﷺ, when Khadija passed away, whenever he would give a gift, he would cut portions of it and send it to the friends and family of Khadija. Again, back to the main point, we live in a society of me, me, me. Are we connected? Are we making time for our family members? Are we making a priority? You know, we may not realize it. Every single person we've ever met, if you heard that they passed away, if we heard that we don't see them, there was a point that was a last time you spoke with them. You didn't realize it. You went to a dawat, you called them on the phone, you met them at the masjid. That moment, you didn't realize it then. But that was the last time you're going to see that person. And that happens to all of us at any given time. And I want you to think for a second. We get phone calls all the time from our family members, do we not? We get text messages from our parents, from our siblings, from our spouses. There's going to be a day where even if you wanted to, you couldn't pick up their phone. Their phone, if you wanted to call them, it'd be grayed out. Why? Because they passed away. You wouldn't be able to call your mother or father and say you love them or thank them for what they did. You wouldn't be able to call or give them a hug or appreciate what they're doing. You know, a husband and wife have a fight, all of a sudden one goes away and has a car accident. For the rest of their life, that spouse will have them on their heart. A father and a son have a fight, the son rushes out the door, father, a few months later has a heart attack. Both of them at the janazah. The people who are alive, guess what? All the things they were arguing about, all the things that were a big deal, all the things they made such a big problem, none of that mattered. All they can think about is the words that they didn't say. Sometimes it's not even on purpose. And I'll end this khutbah, it's not even on purpose. We don't do it intentionally. Weeks go by, months go by. I'm going to visit my parents. I'm going to visit my brother or sister. I'm going to visit my aunts and uncle. Months go by and then you get the news that this person passed away. Just the other week, one of my friends, his sister-in-law, 27 years old, healthy sister, amazing sister, passed away suddenly with a heart attack. There's no guarantees in life. So if there's anything you take away from today's khutbah and acting on the hadith and recommendations of Rasulullah ﷺ to be good to your family, make it a priority. Don't make a weekly habit, a monthly habit, a get-together, have a budget every year to send gifts to your family members. Make sure you ask your mother and father who are your friends, get their numbers, get their addresses. Make it a point, sit down and make the family tree. Rasulullah ﷺ encouraged you to make a family tree, to know your grandparents and your great-grandparents, to know this sense of community and family, because Allah has assigned those people to you. And on the Day of Judgment, you'll be asked on the Day of Judgment, what did you do? What did you do? And the arguments, it's very easy to get angry with the person, to have a fight and a grudge, but it's very difficult to live with that regret for the rest of your life. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be of those who lived on these advice of spreading the salam. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be of those who feed the hungry and help the needy. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be of those who are good to our family, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be of those who pray at night when others are asleep. عباد الله رحمكم الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إماما إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن